Aaron Rodgers breaks his silence regarding the Jets and trashes the organization. We're 1 week away from the NFL draft. What will the Jets do? We're covering all of that on this episode of The Flight Plan. Thanks for joining us, Tim McMaster, along with Zach Rosenblatt. He covers the Jets for The Athletic. We're also going to be joined by the better Connor, the better Rodgers on this episode as well. Connor Rodgers, friend of our Badlands friend here at Flight Plan, obviously, but so locked in on the draft and the Jets and everything. So it's going to be really cool to get his perspective as well. Zach, before we welcome in Connor, though, we got to plug some stuff. You got an event coming up this week in New York. We'll talk about the event last week that was in New York when Connor comes on. But what do you have coming up this week?
Yeah, so The Athletic is doing something. I think it's mostly to promote the Beast and The Athletic at large, but at Scar's Pizza in New York, which is a great pizza spot. I'm going to be there on Wednesday from what time am I going to be there? I already forgot. 4 to 6:30. Yeah. 4 to 6:30. They're like going to have some hard copies of the Beast. They're going to hand out. They're going to have like a bunch of like activities going on. They're going to have like somebody with it, like a build out with an 88-inch wingspan graphic for fan and consumers to see like how they compare to it. And if you have greater than an 88-inch wingspan, you like win something. But yeah, it'll be cool if you want to hang out with me. Would love to see any listeners that are in the New York area. So
this is like the old Michael Jordan poster with the wingspan.
That's I was when I was younger, we used to come to the NBA store in New York. It was like my favorite activity every time I would come here. They would have that exhibit where you have the basketballs with all the hands, where like you can compare how big your hand is compared to like Shaq and whoever else. So yeah, anyway, it's a fun little event. You want to meet me or hang out or get some pizza, come and join me on Wednesday.
And if you want to dodge Zach but still go to the event, it runs Tuesday 3 to 9 and Wednesday 3 to 9. I think it's a lot going on at Scars. So very cool. And anything related to the Beast this time of year is obviously a lot of fun stuff. All right, let's get to Connor. Bring him. Connor Rodgers. I think this is the first time we've had you on. We've obviously been connected to Badlands since last fall, but I think officially this is your first time on. So welcome to Flight Plan.
Thank you for having me, fellas. Happy to be here. I know I didn't even realize that because you guys have been on our feed, been listening to you guys. It feels good, though, to be sitting here with you guys. And as always, no news with the Jets, right? Never in the news.
Well, we were planning on having you on to talk draft anyway, and then Rodgers blessed us with some discussion topics yesterday. So
I feel like it's farewell almost. Farewell, FU, whatever it is. This is how it always goes down in Jets land.
It's FU for both sides too, right? For us and him, I feel.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. It's one of the, I was explaining it and there's been so many moments like this with him over the last couple of years where I got home from work. I was just taking my dog out. I don't bring my phone. I heard he was having a surprise appearance on McAfee. And you just knew when you came home that like you were going to have more shows to do that you didn't plan because he can never just say the normal thing. So here we are.
Yeah, I was just saying before the pod, I was just in Nashville, just wrapping up some things for my wedding. I literally land in Newark. I saw some tweets before I land because I had Wi-Fi, but it was mostly about like the Steelers or whatever. And then I land, turn it on. And as soon as I do that is when he's talking about the Jets and Aaron Glenn, and my fiance is like, "What?" I'm like very focused on that. She's like, "Did you hear what they just said?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I'm listening to Aaron Rodgers right now." And then I wasn't planning on writing, but I felt the need to write a column when I got home. We'll get into that in a second, but
we are going to get into Aaron. But I also wanted to bring up for anybody that didn't get out there or anything, but big Badlands event obviously last week that I unfortunately didn't get to. I'm, as you can tell by my backdrop, not at home. I'm out of town. I'm sorry I missed it, but it seemed like it was a great time. Obviously, both you guys were there. If you want to check in on how that went.
It was awesome. Tim, we got to get you to the next one. We got to have a Flight Plan show. I mean, we had a ton of different segments. We'll make that happen as well. We don't have anything locked down yet, but I would say in the next 5 to 6 months, we will make something happen again. And the fan turnout, it's amazing how much disappointment the Jets bring to their fans and how consistent the fans are in terms of passion and showing up. And I always say to people, it really makes you wonder, because the last time they were good, I was legitimately in college. If they were, I have not been working in this field while they were good. It really makes you wonder what it would look like in the tri-state area.
Dude, I think about that all the time. And I think about when the Knicks had their first, a couple of years ago, where they were good for like the first time and forever, or even the Rangers when they went on that run. Just like being around town was cool, and the Jets haven't had that in longer than both those teams. So
it's really, I think a really good
energy would be great. But yeah, the event was awesome. Like I'm sure it was super cool for you and Joe in particular because you guys have been building this for so long. But just seeing like this group of people, I'm in that Discord chat, seeing putting a lot of the faces to the names. My fiance makes fun of me because I don't know. I don't like attention generally, like in public, and she knows it makes me uncomfortable sometimes. So like saying hi, like all these people are like so happy to meet me. She's just like cracking up in the back. But yeah, it was cool to see you guys. Cool to see the listeners, and I can't wait for the next one. I mean, Connor Hughes, the lesser Connor, as we say. We had a segment, and they played the Darth Vader music as we walked up, and the fans had some playful boos. I think it was in good faith.
The media, the media. Beat writers, I guess.
It was well done. Yeah. You guys were really good sports about it, and I think by the end of the segment, it was like you had turned the crowd. They were back on your guys' side. You had a full.
We pandered a little bit. Yeah,
it's just what you got to do. It's an event. It's entertainment. Come on, you guys did a great job.
They had Diana come out at the end and really get.
I did. There was a couple people who I at one point I said I think to Connor Hughes, I was like, it would have been funny if I just like showed up with Diana without.
It would have been amazing. Yeah,
they would not know how to handle themselves.
I'm already brainstorming for the next one.
And then they're like, and then they realize how nice Diana is, and
exactly.
Like, oh no, we can't hate this woman.
But she's from New Jersey, like she gets it. Yeah, without a doubt.
Totally.
All right, let's get into Rodgers. Man, as you said, an emergency visit to McAfee, and he took the time to, and it was interesting because I thought, okay, he'll drop the garbage about his time there, but it wasn't even that. It was like he's just going to trash the new regime. He's just like, I came out, but let's start with this because this is what just kind of the Aaron Rodgers-ness of this was him complaining about paying for the flight across country. That, I mean, to me, I was just like, well, first of all, that is weird in a way, but like, dude, how much was that flight? Assuming you were first class.
It was his own private plane. I actually think flying on private, I've never done it, so I imagine that would actually be kind of enjoyable flying on that for like 5 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, like that seems like a fun time. Like,
so and he also has a house here, so it's not like he.
Good point.
You know,
was that his way of trying to
on this itinerary?
Were people? Was he trying to get people to relate to him? Like, oh, I had to pay for the flight. Like, I don't know.
I think it was a dig at Woody.
Yeah.
I think that's a like scorned ex-Jets employees. That is something consistently I've gotten for the last 8 years. God, 8 might be 10. It's pretty evident. Like Rodgers does not see eye to eye with Woody, especially when he goes out of his way to talk up Christopher unnecessarily every time. So that was my takeaway. It was that it was his last chance to take a dig at Woody while really lasering in on the new regime.
Zach, you have a column out. Oh, it came out yesterday, I guess, but you rip Rodgers on this. I mean, you clearly side with Glenn and how this was handled. But the thing that you mentioned is, so he complains about the fact that they had him fly across the country to tell him he was fired, basically. But if they had done it by phone and he had answered the phone, he would probably be complaining that they didn't do it face to face.
Right.
So it's an impossible situation.
Here's
makes it an impossible situation.
I'm gonna tell a personal story to relate to this moment. I've been broken up with over the phone before, and that is not enjoyable. I would say I would have preferred she did it in person, if I'm being honest. But yeah, he was gonna spin it in his direction no matter how like it was presented. Look, I like getting fired as I phrased it, like doesn't feel good. Like, and so I don't think any way they did it, he was gonna like could Aaron Glenn have handled it with like a softer touch? Like, sure, but like what does that accomplish? Like he ripped off the Band-Aid minutes into that meeting. Like okay, let's sleep on it and then we'll talk about it again tomorrow. I think, and Aaron Glenn probably won't address this. I found it fascinating that, I mean, I think Aaron, people might accuse him of lying. I think he actually has a hard time lying. I think he's maybe too honest to a degree. So like the way that he says, like Aaron Glenn sits down and he's like, "Are you sure you want to play?" And I forget what the line was. Aaron was like, "Yeah, I'm interested."
I'm interested. Yeah,
that might have been that. If there was any like small percentage that Aaron Glenn was considering, I feel like in that moment he's like, "All right, then we're not going to do like the whole song and dance. Like, how do you want to do the messaging?" I actually think that was like a respectful way to do it. Like, we're bringing you here, or maybe they didn't bring him here. Maybe he just flew there by himself, honestly. But like, we want to like make sure this is very respectful to you and all that. And then once you know it, it leaks out like a day before they're going to release the message. I wonder how that leaked out. So, I think Aaron in a lot of ways gets overly criticized, or like things he says get taken out of like proportion like small things that taken out of proportion, but it's his own fault a lot of the time because, as I always say, if he never did the Pat McAfee show, if he like didn't go on this weekly and just share all of his opinions and his feelings, like people would think so much differently of him because we wouldn't know what he thinks about everything. So he was fun to cover in a lot of ways. And as I was joking with Tim before, in terms of like traffic, I'm going to miss him for sure, but I'm not going to miss going on every Tuesday or like the way things played out this last season. Like I went on a bunch of rants. I know you and Joe did too. Like his like nonsense he was bringing while not playing well. It was just like so exhausting. So all the power to him in Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin, but Justin Fields is not going to be causing controversy, I would say pretty confidently. So
I think for me, it's almost kind of sad to watch what was such a, he had national appeal when he was on the Packers in his prime, and he had a long prime. He didn't have like a prime that ended at age 32. And people turned on any Packer game to see Aaron Rodgers play because he's one of the most gifted throwers of all time. He's a showman, like a showman. He's not, he didn't play like Peyton and Brady. He didn't carry himself like that. And this is before it got even, more off the rails like it has from a media perspective. Now at this stage, at this age, as the body breaks down and some things start to go wrong, there's just a constant with him that it's never his fault. And the reason he does these media appearances is because he needs his side of the story and angle out. And that's okay. I have no problem when players do that. But when it's always the same story now in two different places, the last couple of years in Green Bay, the 2 years with the Jets and how it ended with the Jets. And guess what? It's going to be the same thing if he goes to the Steelers. They're going to come up short. He's going to, probably not be thrilled unless he finally just swallows his pride and rides off into the sunset, which he just has not been able to do. And I respect that. Like, it's not easy to play this sport physically and mentally at his age and keep going. But man, it's just sad to watch this version of him personality-wise where he has to tear down everything around him in an attempt to make himself look viable and better, where we watch the games. That's what's crazy to me. We watch the games. I mean, Zach, you're around this team a lot. Like, there's a sense around this team, not everybody, but a sense around this team of how things were when Devontae came in and the first year when Billy Turner and Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard, who's still hanging around, like the bad ramifications of that. So it's not enjoyable. It's not entertaining. It's really just become sad to watch for what was such a great NFL player.
And to your point on that, and then we can stop talking about this. Like they did everything he wanted. Like they practically begged him to come. They brought all his friends in. They tried to make him comfortable. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett didn't get fired after one of the worst offensive coordinator seasons I've ever seen because Rodgers would have been mad if they fired him. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas didn't get fired because Aaron Rodgers endorsed them. Like, he got what he wanted for the most part. And then when he started to not get what he wanted, Saleh getting fired after week 5, which again, we've talked about a lot, Hackett getting demoted, everything that's happened since the end of the season, he didn't get what he wanted. And so he's not used to that. And so, I mean, that kind of happened at the end in Green Bay, and it like you said, it's a cycle. And I'm going to be fascinated to see how fans, even the ones that supported him, talk about this when we talk about the Rodgers era, like 10 years from now. Cause I feel like the Brett Favre era, I know it like flamed out and there was a lot of like controversy and stuff like that, but I don't think it was viewed in the same way when it ended as this is and is going to be.
I think he did long-term damage yesterday that did not exist before he did all of that. Yeah. I think it was looked at by the pragmatic part of the fan base that it was the right move at the time. It carried risk, but the Jets were desperate. He tore his Achilles. He fought to come back. It didn't work. There was some problems with Rodgers, really schematically what he wanted and from a personnel standpoint. But he did give it everything he had. It just didn't work. There's no ill will towards him.
Yeah.
I don't think there would have been celebrating him. It would have been a very neutral feeling, and he would have got the Jumbotron return and an applause or whatever. Yesterday, to me, totally flipped this on his head. I think the fan base, rightfully so, is going to be infuriated by this and kind of give it to him, and there's going to be a lot of anger, and they want to say Aaron Glenn is more of a New York Jet than Aaron Rodgers will ever be without him even being a head coach.
Yeah, good point.
And now he's the head coach. So Aaron Glenn already has a built-in credibility and love from this fan base that Aaron Rodgers was never able to get, and which is unfortunate. We all wanted Rodgers to get that, but it just didn't happen. So the fan base, rightfully so, is going to support Aaron Glenn. and kind of spit that, anger back at Rodgers, which he did this to himself yesterday.
Yeah, and look, if it doesn't work and the Jets don't win, like Aaron Glenn will suffer the consequences. But
yes.
I think he handled it the way he needed to. He's putting his, he's stamping the culture here. Like, I mean, if you look at everything they did after that, it wouldn't have made sense to bring him back. They don't want anybody that's over 30 years old, and he is over 30 if you remove all the controversy. So Aaron Glenn is establishing a culture which they need. We'll find out if it works. I'm sure people will retroactively criticize him for this if it doesn't work, but I don't think anything he did was wrong personally. So
if Aaron Glenn wins 7 games this year, he passes Rodgers wins with the Jets.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
all right. Let's get into the draft. Move on from Rodgers, but we're going to figuratively and literally move on from Rodgers right now. And everybody in the chat was kind of saying that too. Let's move on. Connor, is this your, as we get into the draft, is this your busiest week of the year, or is there a different time of year? Yeah.
This one is not draft week, which is kind of weird, right? It's
right
now Thursday to Sunday is because you do coverage for all 3 days of the draft, and then Sunday night for SMY, we always do our Jets recap show. And that Sunday morning, I try to get my grades done that are going to be due for NBC for every team. So that stretch is crazy. But Monday to Wednesday is more like it's all done. Like my top 302 is going to be published Monday. The final mock is really in your head, mostly done, unless you get a crazy phone call Tuesday or Wednesday. You jump on podcasts and stuff, but it's a little bit more casual. This week has been getting through UDFAs and 7th rounders that could be more for the top 302. You don't want to miss anyone. Doing media, radio, a lot of fun stuff. And then Aaron Rodgers throws an absolute nuke in the middle of it, which is that's not normal. So yeah, this is definitely the busiest week of the year for sure. Just finalizing everything that you've been working on for 11 months.
So we should open by talking about the things that it feels like we've been talking about for 7 months, but it actually just probably last month. But at number 7, it seems like the consensus, and it might not wind up being this. I think everybody's kind of guessing a little bit with Glenn and Muji right now because nobody really knows what they're going to do. But Membo and Tyler Warren are the two like most tied. It feels like deja vu from last year.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But like, where do you stand on that debate? And what would you think about if they draft Membo and if they draft Warren?
I think they almost can't go wrong. I think when it comes down to it, I'm starting to wonder if Membu's going to make it. Because I've run this through my head where I'm like, I think he's the best tackle in the draft. I think Campbell's a guard and a really, really good offensive lineman. There's not a lot of tackles that have played in the NFL with his wingspan or lack thereof. So you just wonder, why would these teams in front of the Jets or a team not trade up? And I think they really love Warren, where I don't know if they're bothered by it. I think they know they need with Warren, I say it like this, you get a little bit of both. You get help for your line of scrimmage in the run game and helping a tackle and pass pro. And you get a number 2 pass catcher and a red zone threat, which the Jets have just not had. Like Garrett Wilson is an amazing player. I don't think he's a dynamic red zone threat typically. No. So they need size in the red zone. They need size in the middle of the field. This offense schematically, when you watch the Lions and a lot of the things Tanner Engstrand likes, needs a dynamic tight end. And they don't even have a capable one really on the roster right now. So I would lean Warren a little bit because there's the chance Membu doesn't make it. But yeah, I would call that a 50-50 split. I know everybody's like, now it feels like national guys are like, it could be a surprise defensive player. And
I know, yeah.
I don't think they should do that. I think that would be, I'd feel bad for Justin Fields and Engstrand. They just would not be working with a lot. I'm curious what their view is on the day 2 tackle class, because if they feel, and they've had a visit with, I believe, Ariante Ursary or Charles Grant, I think was the Ursary I know has been kind of on their radar. If they like one of those guys as to compete for right tackle, then you could take Warren and go day 2 tackle. If you don't think those guys are starters, then you got to take Membu if he's there at right tackle. So it's going to depend how they view this draft as a whole.
And it's a pretty good tight end class too, which I'm sure is maybe
it is
if they like whatever Mason Taylor or something like that in the second round. But yeah,
it's weird. It's good, and then it falls off. So now if you missed on tight end, it's not like your franchise would crumble. But it is a strong tight end class. Like at 42, you brought up Mason Taylor. He would be in play. Maybe at the top of the 3rd round, you'd have a shot at Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. We'll see what Elijah Arroyo ends up with, because he's got, the history of the knee injuries, but he's a really, really good player. But then after that, I'm like, you don't get one of those guys. I don't really like the rest of it that much. They're role players, like blockers or pass catchers. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see kind of how they play that end of the board.
Connor, you have kind of a unique perspective here in that you're a draft expert, but you're also a Jets expert. So I want you to not look at the whole draft. I don't want you to give me like 7 or 8 names or whatever, but can you give us like your wish list for the Jets coming out of this draft? Maybe like if they come out of it with these 4 guys, you'll be thrilled for them.
Yeah, so if you take Membu or Warren at 7, you're looking really, really good. Say you took Membu, then at 42, I would love to get a pass catcher and take the best one available. And I'd look at Jaden Higgins from Iowa State in that spot. Like that's the Membu-Higgins combo in the first 2 rounds I'd feel really, really good about. In round 3, I'd go best player available at a need, which could be defensive tackle. Alfred Collins from Texas is a run stuffer that could play really any alignment, but he has a lot of experience at nose tackle, which the Jets need. I think they need another I honestly think they might need 2 safeties, depending on how they view Tony Adams going forward. And Cisco's on a 1 year. You can get value at safety in this class. I think they need an enforcer on the back end. Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State is that guy for me. 215 pounds, physical, really good tackler. He's just somebody that he carries himself a kind of a different way. Him and Warren used to really go at it in practice, and that was a physical battle at Penn State. Winston tore his ACL in September. Otherwise, I think he'd be a top 50 pick. You'd probably get him at a discount now. You know, Aaron Glenn knows a thing or two about the Mickens family playing alongside RJ Mickens' dad with the Jets. RJ is a good safety prospect himself. You can get on day 3. So those are some guys that I would keep an eye on, and because they address all the needs, right? Like the Jets have a lot of needs, and that's a couple names that hit all those needs.
I'm very curious to see if they go like, and I don't think you could blame if they go like 3 straight offensive guys to start this draft.
Me too.
Like, the way the board plays out, it kind of feels like it makes sense too. Yeah.
Yes, there's a good theory to doing that, because my take is, as somebody that loves Mason Graham, the anti-Mason Graham argument is in rounds 4 and 5, double up on D-line, because this D-line class, I mean, I've gotten through right now 31 of them, and they're all draftable. 31 of them. D tackles, not counting pass rushers, edge rushers, just the D tackles. So you can get a starter in rounds 4. Say you double dip in 4 and 5. I think you're going to hit on one of those 2 guys, not as an elite player, but a starter next to Quinnen Williams. So double dip on D-line in rounds 4 and 5. If you go offense rounds 1 to 3, which would be a really nice shot in the arm for this offense to infuse it with some young talent.
Yeah. So I wanted to run through. There's been a couple like reports or ideas floated that have angered Jets fans, and I'm curious your reaction to them. You can
No way.
So the big one we can start with. I'm sure you guys have talked about it a bunch. Ashton Jeanty, Breece Hall, like that whole idea. Like, what do you think about that? Like, I think the idea, like broadly, is that you just take an elite guy, and Jeanty is that in this draft.
Yeah.
But I mean, they need way more things than just a running back, and they're not as far along as the Lions were when they did the same with Gibbs. So, where do you stand on that?
You just wonder how much better it makes you. I think if you really are souring on Breece, and these guys got to be around Breece, and Breece has to be healthy. That's the most important thing to me. I know there's the weird fact he's in a contract year, but I don't really believe in running back contract years anymore, because the franchise tag is such a joke for it that I don't think the running back contract year exists anymore. So I think the Jets just aren't talented enough that they could say, let's get an upgrade from Breece Hall, but ignore 6 other problems.
Yeah. It's not like Breece is bad. So like,
right. And honestly, if you're worried about his health or his usage, like you're telling me one of Braylon Allen or Isaiah Davis can't be a capable number 2 running back, which I think they can, especially with how the Lions use their running backs. So it feels very, very rich. And it's hard for me to say that because Jeanty is my 3rd overall player in the draft. If you take the 3rd overall player in the draft, typically at 7, you're like, wow, this is looking good.
Pretty good, yeah.
But it's just the math doesn't math for the Jets on that one.
Yeah. I'll lump these 2 together. It's kind of quieted down, but there was like Jackson Dart at 7 talk, and then our Nick Baumgartner gave the Jets Jalen Milroe in the 2nd round, which it didn't seem like fans were too thrilled about. So I'm curious what you think about those 2 ideas. Milroe, I think, is more intriguing, obviously, at that spot. They probably shouldn't do that, but I wouldn't blame them personally.
Yeah, I'm lower on Dart. I have him 60th right now. There's just a lot of things in his game that are questions to me where I would not take him in the 1st round. If you take him in the 2nd round and let him sit for a year, okay. I think his play speed at times, he's late on throws. I think Trey Harris bailed him out on a couple throws, who's a great wide receiver prospect. He didn't play under center in that Ole Miss offense. That's going to be and it was an adjustment. Like the first day of the Senior Bowl was like, okay, we're having trouble getting the snaps off. So Milroe is one of the weird ones where I think he's my third quarterback in this draft, all based on upside. He's still my 57th overall player. It's weird. Do I love him for the Jets? I did in the third round. He doesn't have to play this year. Fields can play. Tyrod could play if something happens to Fields. Milroe needs to sit. I think he's an A+ worker in person with really a lot of physical ability. And when you have those two things together, give it a shot because it might hit where other guys might not have one or the other. They might not have the work ethic. They might not have the physical talent. So, but once again, I think this roster has so many needs. My take for the Jets is honestly, I just punt on quarterback this year in this draft.
I agree. Yeah.
Don't use an asset on it. I don't love this class. I really like Milroe, but I think at 42, they need a starter elsewhere. Yep. And you know what? If Fields stinks this year and Tyrod has to finish the year, does anyone kill Aaron Glenn and Muji for that? They're going to get a shot in the draft to take their own guys. So it's almost a house money year for them. Why do you need to do what they did with Jordan Travis last year? There's this day 3 guy, 30% of the fan base keeps talking about him, although we've never seen him throw in practice. And I get it, right? But I did a fun exercise. I forget where it was a couple weeks ago. We went through, it might've been on Badlands, I think with Joe. We went through every starter in the league. And outside of Dak Prescott, who only made it to the 4th round because I think he had a DUI the month leading up to the draft. He was not a day 3 talent. He was a day 2 talent. And Brock Purdy, starting quarterbacks are not just found on day 3 of the draft. It's a total anomaly. So I just don't think it's a good year for the Jets to have to do that.
I think Tom Brady ruined that for everyone. That
he really
did. Tom Brady was a late.
And Purdy, I've said lines like that where I'm like, the odds of you getting a starting quarterback on day 3 are slim to none. And everybody's like, yeah, well, Brock Purdy, so you got to try. Well, that's like literally like 1 in a million. It's probably
the Mega Millions. It's playing the Mega Millions. What you're drafting for on day 3 with quarterbacks typically is guys with backup floors, because backup quarterbacks are so damn expensive right now.
Yep.
It's like if I don't have to pay, I mean, we just saw Joe Milton get traded for an asset. Like if I don't have to pay a backup 10 to 15 million, that's a lot of money on my books that I'm saving right now. I think that's the like number one talking point nobody talks about with the draft is that quarterbacks are drafted to be backups because it's a cost saving factor.
Yeah. All right. There's one more. This one just emerged the other day. I hadn't heard it yet, so I was intrigued what you thought. I saw Albert Breer reported that he said keep an eye on the classic like keep an eye on thing in draft season. Keep an eye on Jahdae Barron for the Jets because they think he's a really good fit for Aaron Glenn's defense. I don't know that drafting a defensive back early would really make the locals very happy, but curious what you think about that.
I would hate it. He's right. He's a good fit in the defense. Yeah. He's a good player. I don't think he's a top 10 pick, and I don't think the Jets can afford this luxury. Barron, to me, is more of a Swiss Army knife than an outside corner. He played everywhere for Texas over the years. He played corner this year. If I was ranking him as an outside corner, he would be my 4th outside corner in this draft. But as a just overall defensive player, he's 21 for me. He's a good player. He's smart. He can come up and tackle. He can play the slot for you. He could play safety. He would be a good player for Aaron Glenn. That's not the move at 7. I want a good player at 42 for the Jets that I think is a good fit for the defense. At 7, I need a premium position that alters our philosophy. That's a right tackle, right? And people will probably throw him back in my face. Well, how could you say that about a tight end? Tyler Warren helps your run game and pass game. So, and this is an offense that is really, really thin right now. So Barron is a good player. He is a perfect scheme fit. The value and the position, like the lack of being a premium position, just doesn't add up at 7. That's a trade down scenario for sure.
Speaking of trade downs, nice segue for us there, Connor.
Yeah.
Zach actually has a story out this week about teams they could trade down with, because one of the issues here is there's more teams trying to get out of the top 10 right now.
Nobody wants to pick.
Nobody wants to pick. People keep tweeting the stat that this is like the first year without everybody has their first round pick in like a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's not going to change. I don't think.
If somebody slips to 7, there's a world where the Jets have the opportunity to trade back. So if they do that, I just wanted to run through some options if it's not number 7, right? If they're picking later in the first round. Some of the names that Zach has on his story, and people should check that out. Colston Loveland, if they stick with the tight end row, what do you think of him out of Michigan?
He's phenomenal. He'd be a really, really nice get. He's my 15th overall player. He's a better route runner than Warren, and he's got more natural hands than Warren. He's not as big. He's not as physical. He's been banged up, which always scares you at that position because in the middle of the field, you just get smashed all the time when you're that kind of receiving threat. But man, is he a really, really dynamic player. When you watch Laporta and the Lions offense, Loveland can do all of those things and might be even a little bit more gifted. And he's a better blocker than given credit for. So I think Loveland, if Warren goes in the top 10, like we all expect, I don't know if Loveland makes it past the Colts at 14. That's how good he is.
All right. If they go defense, Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, this one would depend on how far back they go. Now, I have him 20th. He's that big end that Glenn would love. Explosive, long strider so he can contain quarterbacks. The hands need to be coached up. He needs more go-to moves rather than like, I'm the bigger athlete. That's how I win. He needs to finish more plays. His missed tackle rate, I think he was 8th percentile in missed tackles, which is an alarming number of missed plays. But he's a scheme fit. He's a great athlete. He's a disruptor, not a play finisher. It's the difference. Like Abdul Carter and Mike Green are double-digit sack players. They are play finishers. Shamar Stewart is a disruptor with 1.5 sacks across the last couple of years. He kind of
It's a projection,
Yeah, it's a projection, and he'll also kind of, send the running back or the quarterback elsewhere into the teeth of the defense somewhere else. So like the player, would definitely be more if they traded into the second half of the first round, and I still would have a lot of questions about this offense.
All right, and then two more that I'll combine because they're both safeties. There's Nick Emenwari, who skyrocketed after the he was the star of the combine. The Athletic has him at number 17, and then Malachi Starks, another safety out of Georgia.
Yeah, I think Starks is a top 20 player. He can handle so many roles for you on the back end. I think he can cover one-on-one, which is pretty special for a safety, whether it's the slot, whether it's outside, split safety role, single high safety role. He's just very, very fluid. That would be an interesting pick because the Jets him and Cisco, you can kind of use them in different ways together and interchangeable. That would be trading in the back half of this in the first round. I would not like Emenwari in the first round for the Jets. He is a safety that's a great athlete that plays like an outside linebacker, but isn't big enough to be an outside linebacker. I almost think that it's weird. The Jets already hit on this with Sherwood. Sherwood was a safety at Auburn that transitioned exactly to linebacker, almost how I would want Emenwari's role to play. Now, is Emenwari a better athlete and a better cover player in zone than Sherwood ever was? Yes, but they allocated so much money to that kind of role. I'm a little skeptical about how his usage is going to be. I think he's a physical downhill strong safety, but I just don't know if that's a first-round player. And for the Jets right now, that would be one of those things where you're looking around and going like, man, we just liked this player, but we once again looked like I'd rather get a pass rusher. I'd rather get a Jahdae Barron if I was going the defensive route, which I am very, very cold on right now. Yeah, that one has big fear factor, and there's big bust potential there.
Yeah. So I always like to end off with when we have draft experts on who your guys are, like, because I know you have guys that you're in love with it. So I'm curious, who are a few, not even just for the Jets, just like broadly, like who are some of your prospects in this draft?
Yeah, so just higher on than consensus is always a really, really good way to put this. I mean, this one kind of caught up. I have Mike Green at 8. He's been there a really long time. Jaden Higgins at 26. I think he's a first-round player. I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but that's one for me. I really, really like him. I think Quinshon Judkins is going to be a star in this league, and he doesn't ever get mentioned at that first-round running back combo, and that's fine. Jacob Parrish, the corner from Kansas State, super underrated. I mean, for me right now, and this isn't going to change, he is my corner 6 ahead of like Trey Amos, Darian Porter, Benjamin Morrison, Maxwell Hairston. You don't see a lot of that. I brought up RJ Mickens. I think he's super underrated, really safe, smart player. And then one more I'll kind of throw your guys' way. Let's go further down the board here. Offensive line. Holland Pierce from Rutgers is fascinating. He's just the size of he's a mountain of a human being. Like, I think he was over 400 pounds when he got there. He got his weight under control. He's the day 3 tackle where if I felt like I had an offense that's going to park a tight end next to him to limit some of the slower kick slide and stuff, and just want to absolutely smash people in the mouth in the run game, Pierce is that day 3 tackle where I'm intrigued just by the sheer size of this human.
Love that.
All right. Awesome stuff, Connor. Thanks for coming on for the first time. We'll have you back, obviously, down the road. But thank you so much, and enjoy the next week leading up to draft day.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate you having me. We'll talk soon.
All right. All right. Anything else, Zach, before we say goodbye?
Let's see. I don't think so. So so next week, I think our plan is to go live pretty quickly after like Aaron Glenn and Muji talk on Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday.
And then we'll do then probably a wrap up pod like Sunday or Monday or something like that, I think is what we usually do. Right. So yeah, we'll do that. It should be an exciting draft. I mean, the Badlands, if you don't subscribe to all the feeds, I highly recommend it because they're going to be pumping out pods like before I even get like my articles up. So, but yeah, I would say, and also I hit the subscribe button on here too. I know a lot of you guys listen, and I hope you all subscribe. But yeah, in exciting times. The draft is always funny with the off season because the first like 4.5 months of the year, you're kind of like moving, like there's free agency, but you're not really doing that much. And then you just have these 3 days where I'm as busy as I am all year, where I'm gone all day or not, I'm gone super late at night, writing a lot of stories, doing a lot of reporting. And so the draft is always a lot of fun. It's our first one on the Badlands feed. And that'll be fun next week. So make sure you guys are subscribing so you see when we're going live.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. We will talk to you again at the draft next week.